Once again, we're going to open up the floor for Mr. Garza, and please stand, state your name and your question.
And Mr. Garza, could you try to repeat the question?
Yes, because
of the mic.
Okay. Yes, sir.
This is Professor M. Gene Aldridge. Bienvenido, señor.
Gracias.
Gracias a ti. I am full of questions. I live with a Mexican woman who is my wife, and my son, Juan Pablo, who is Latino named. We sit with great consternation in North Phoenix, watching the GOP destroy themselves with the Hispanic community in which we live. First, I have a couple of questions, but let me focus on two, if I might.
Sure.
One is, where do you get your money? And two, what are you doing about the governor's races? I did a content analysis today of the governor's races in Arizona on their policy material, and I could find nothing for Ducey on Hispanics, for example. Mayor Scott Smith says he's worked with Hispanics. That's how he handles that issue. Mr. Bennett, I can't find much on him either in terms of content analysis. What can Libre do to help us here fight the battle with the GOP? Because the GOP is not educating Hispanics, is not hitting the streets with Hispanics, in my opinion. And Mr. Graham says he is, but he isn't.
Okay, so a lot of questions there. One is, where do we get the money? Governor's race, and then what can we do with the GOP, right? First, let me just say we're nonpartisan, flat out. We don't endorse candidates. We don't endorse parties. We are unapologetically conservatarian. Means we lean conservative and libertarian, depending on the issues. We believe in constitutional limits. So we align mostly with conservative candidates, who, of course, tend to be from the Republican Party. So I think that's the nature of your question, right?
But they're silent. No, my question is really, they're silent
Understood.
on the Hispanic issues.
They are.
They're silent on innovative immigration like you just described.
Yeah.
I concur with your approach. I think we need to go through the legal process, give them 5 years, and let them roll.
I think what we're seeing, we're already starting to see, I think, movement by the GOP. I think we're starting to see urgency by the GOP on outreach, on engagement. And that urgency, I think, is causing the leadership also to move on immigration reform. For example, at the top of the leadership, you see John Boehner make overtures about immigration reform. Paul Ryan, Eric Cantor, Goodlatte, McMorris Rogers, Flake. I mean, you're just seeing it across the board. You know, I guess somebody local here. That there's already movement from the leadership. And again, I think because they see to arrive at this with a very reasonable approach to legislation. And I think that's going to require that the left also move from their fixed position. The left has said citizenship or nothing, the whole enchilada or nothing. And so that is not also, I think, a political reality at this point as to where we're at. So they need to move from that position and come to the middle just as much as the Republican Party. So we're hoping that there is a spirited debate and there's true bipartisanship that forces them to come together and then resolve those differences. And I think there's plenty of opportunity for that. And I think you see some real efforts by like a Luis Gutierrez, who really wants to pass immigration reform, and he'll do what it takes. But somebody like Javier Becerra is more political in his approach to it, and so he's on a fixed position, and he doesn't want to deal with the Republican Party. And that's not, helpful either. The president has now started to move a little bit on that, so that's encouraging. We want to work with elected officials. We just did an event with Rand Paul in Milwaukee on school choice. An amazing turnout. And this is a critical issue for the Hispanic community, one that appeals to them because it offers them choice. And so we were very proud to do that. And we're going to do more of that with elected leaders, and especially folks who are more of the conservative, libertarian bent, because they align with our principles, and that's what we care about. As far as the money, look, we get, our funding comes from hundreds of Americans who are about the Constitution, who are about liberty. That's all I can tell you. Like other 501c3s, we keep our donors anonymous because that's what they prefer. Plus, we don't want to, distract from the message and then turn it on our donors. That's not helpful to our agenda either. So I can tell you that's hundreds of donors that contribute.
Great, thank you. Next question?
Now,
Stand up.
I can't, I'm the, Alan Bitter. Two questions. In terms of securing the border, would
Yeah,
you,
yeah, he'll repeat it.
in terms of securing the border, would you put the military on the border? That's one question. And then it's been reported that there's over 1 million of the gang, is it M13? MS-13. Now in the United States, being and supporting the cartel in Mexico and distributing. How would you? What would you do about that?
I think there's no question that we need to improve security on the border. Cartel, gangs, possible terrorists. I don't know. You know, there's a lot of people that would do ill to America that we need to keep out. But I think by absorbing those folks that are industrious and hardworking and want to, contribute to the American economy, we can then get to, the priority issues, which are those folks that would do harm to America.
The border's so open right now.
Well, but that's because we don't have a law that allows us to absorb folks that we can qualify and quantify, with work visas and these kind of things, and keep tabs on. We don't know who's here. Of the 11 million, I mean, that's the guesstimate, that it's 11 million, but some people say it's as high as 20 to 30 million. I have no clue. I wouldn't put my hand over the fire and give you an actual number, but, but that's because we don't have a system that allows us to process them. So if we could process them, then we could focus on those things. Militarizing the border, that's too severe for me. I think there's other ways we can do it, I know that McCall is working on a bill that is doing exactly that. The assets that we can put on the border, that new technology that we can put on the border. I think we need to resort to I think those resources first before we would consider anything about military. At least that's my personal opinion. And I live on the border. I want you to know I live 5 blocks from the border in McAllen, from McAllen and Reynosa. They just killed 30 cartel members the other week in gunfights. So this matters to me, and it matters to my children. I have 3 children who live, in the crosshairs. So, but I think through technology and resources we could achieve that.
Yes, sir.
You did an excellent job. You portrayed the problem as it is.
Please stand up and state your name.
I'm a son of an immigrant, so I know what my father went through, but fortunately he was able to become a citizen. But we've got to address that first, because now with most of the Mexicans, you've got an emotional issue.
Yeah.
I like what he stands, but he's against immigration. I like what he stands, but he isn't like Mexican. So you're dealing with the emotion, and that's what we got to work with. And you just got to hit these guys on the head. We've got to take it a step at a time, and I agree with that approach that he said. Let's give them 5 years. But the problem we're going to have is distinguishing those that have been here for a while, 10 years, 20 years, and those that have been here for 6 months. And that's the tough part. But you're on the right track, and
Thank you. No, it is a very complicated issue, and very complex, and very sensitive. And I just feel we have to have an honest conversation about what are the remedies. Let's move from the status quo that is obviously not working, and let's see, where we can, advance policy prescriptions that are going to get us to a better system that, again, is going to improve, I think, the unity of families, but also, help to contribute to our economy.
Yes.
My name is Shirley Cordasco, and we could be here all night. The questions that I have to. You are stating what everyone else is stating, 11 million people. That was 20 years ago. I fled California because the Hispanics, illegals, destroyed California. They closed hospitals in California. They destroyed the fabric of that state. You talked about Woody Guthrie and some wonderful music. The Eagles, you're a little young to know who.
No, I was born in '68, so.
The song, they call it Paradise. That was about Malibu. They call it Paradise till everyone found out about this paradise. It wasn't paradise anymore. So we have many, many issues. You've got your President Obama working for the illegals. They voted him in and he'll continue to give them whatever they want. So this fight is far from over. You've exaggerated and made them appear to be wonderful people coming here just to work. I've been robbed twice. It was buying illegal in California. That hasn't happened here. I have a lot to say, much of what
Sure.
you would not like. So.
And what is your
totally-
question?
Pardon me?
What is your question?
I have many questions. The border has to be closed. We have corrupt politicians in Washington. They're doing this just to protect their butt. They don't care whether you're here or you're not. The illegals do not want to be Americans. They do not want to assimilate. My grandparents are from Europe. They came here and kissed the ground when they came here. All they wanted to do was speak English. The illegals do not. They will not assimilate. And as long as we keep giving them and paying for them, they will never assimilate. So I don't want to continue.
Sure. No.
You might-
Look, with all due respect, obviously, we have differences on how we see the immigrant community. But I think I've been honest. I did say that there is, a certain sector of all immigrants, of all immigrant groups, regardless of race, regardless of nationality, that are here to, I think, exploit the American system, to exploit, I think, our social welfare issues. I think Milton Friedman said it, the reason we cannot have open borders is because we have an entitlement society. Sure, of course. But look, the vast majority of immigrants are here to work hard, to contribute to our economy. And I know we have that difference, but we'll agree to disagree. So here's the reality of things. We have a status quo where we have 11 million or whatever it is, 15 million, I'll grant you whatever number you want to put out. But inaction is not going to solve the issue. The status quo it's going to actually worsen it. As we continue to do nothing, it's just going to perpetuate. So why not now advance law that allows us to absorb these folks, get on with the business of legalizing them so they can begin to assimilate and then, of course, contribute to our economy. That makes much more sense to me than just ignoring the issue and the position of inaction. It's not acceptable. Not acceptable. So, it's not an easy thing to live in a country that you come to because you want opportunity, because you want to improve the life of your family. I mean, and you have to ask yourself that question: would you do the same in their position? Where you have such a prosperous nation as a neighbor, and where there's opportunity, and you have family members that have crossed over, and they invite you to come over. Look, let's just say that you do. It's a tough life to live in the shadows and not be able to assimilate, and to have your children be treated as others, who are treated as almost like their aspirations are not equal to other American kids, even though they were born in America as well. That's a difficult life to live as a parent and for the children as well, especially for dreamer kids who really, through no fault of their own, are actually here. They got brought by their parents, but 10 years later, they find themselves in a school system where they cannot go to college or assimilate fully because they were brought here illegally. That's a reality that we have to deal with, and inaction is not acceptable from a policy position. And so, I will state my case and be very forceful about that, and just as you will. And that's the beauty about America. I think that we can disagree, and we can have this honest discussion. I thank you for that question and that statement.
Yes, Mark.
Hi, my name is Mark Singer. Bienvenido.
Gracias.
I am now a PC for the Republican Party. To be honest with you, I really don't care about the Republican Party. I don't care about the Democratic Party. I don't care about the independents. We have people in Washington that are never going to solve this problem. The frustration of Shirley is like a lot of people that are all over the country, the Tea Party people. But here's this real situation. We're smarter than the people that are in Washington. The professor made a good statement about what he was saying about the Republicans and what they're not doing. If we use our own brain power and come together, we can make solutions to the problem. I was fortunate enough, sir, last February, last year, I believe it was, to go to a Frank Lund's focus group in Tempe. And you know who Frank Luntz is? He has a focus group. He does this on Hannity. It's interesting. There was mostly, supposedly, Republican people there. They were conservative, moderate, and liberal, okay? And it was a good mix of people. The biggest consensus that they had is the guy who was a Marine for 11 years did not want to have citizenship granted to people that joined the military. But most people realize that they're not coming up with solutions in Washington. Now, I've heard Stephen speak before on Shane Krauser's show. I heard you speak. And these guys are good guys. I'm just telling you that, and I'm not a dummy. You can't fool me. I've been selling door-to-door since 1968. I know the people business. The professor right there is a good man. We have got to blow off McCain. We got to blow off Flake and all the other guys in Washington, put ourselves together, and I would be willing to work for this gentleman if he'll give me one guarantee.
What's that?
I want you to work and help the black community, lift them up, because they are in problems right now. And nobody in Washington or anywhere is helping the black community. Why don't we do it all at one time? Why don't we lift up all the people out there? And
I think who's in trouble right now? A white Christian. This is the worst time in the world to be a white
Shirley,
Christian.
I'm a white Christian. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it at all. I'm never going to worry about it because I don't think it matters. What you got to do is, here's the thing. Your glass is either half full or half empty. It's up to you to decide what you want to be. And I think that this gentleman here can do it, but I have 4 quick questions. You just make the comments. I want you to make a comment. Sammy Rodriguez is a mentor of mine. You know Sammy?
Yes, the NHCLC.
Great man. Give me your opinions on 4 subject matters. 1, abortion. 2, gay marriage. 3, socialism. 4, communism.
You're all nice.
I'm pro-life. Life begins at conception. I make no exceptions. That's my personal view. This is not a Leave It Initiative position. We don't take positions on social issues. My personal view is that I'm pro-life. Life begins at conception. On gay marriage, we don't have a position on that either. That's a social issue that's being fought, in the courts and being fought, I think, across America. Do you want my personal opinion on it? Is that what you're asking?
Well, your organization doesn't take it?
No, the organization does not take it on that social issue. Look, I think I kind of agree with millennials on this one. That people are free to do what they want to do, as far as they don't hurt or damage anybody else. So I'm for civil unions. I'm for folks having that freedom to do so. I have my own personal opinions about gay marriage, but that's as far as I'll tell you. What was the other one on socialism?
Socialism, communism, social justice.
Every time socialism, as Milton Friedman said, every time socialism has been tried, it's failed. Every time capitalism has been tried, it's worked. Socialism is a scourge of societies. It is wrecking Venezuela right now, and the people are out in the streets fighting for their freedoms, fighting against socialism, and I joined that cause. I resist socialism with every being with every fiber of my body. And communism is worse. Totalitarianism, of course, destroys societies and destroys the human rights of man. It is anti-constitutional, as obviously I would condemn it fully,
The last
entirely.
social justice.
So it depends what your definition of social justice is.
Social justice is redistribution of wealth, the collective.
Yeah, I am against and I resist more and more redistribution of earned wealth. I think people should be left, with their hard-earned money, because they're the ones who generate more opportunities for jobs and economic prosperity for others. When the state begins to dictate for us, how you can best spend our own money, it's wasted. I think the greatest travesty about welfare is not the wasted money; it's the wasted lives. And so I would just tell you that I would resist redistribution of earned wealth, more and more of it.
Muchas gracias.
Okay, we have time for one more question, please.
Thank you first, because I gotta go.
Okay.
Okay, hi, I'm Darren Dunham. We've been talking about comprehensive immigration for 10 years.
Yeah.
we could already, all these problems could already be solved, because people like me and the rank and file, the Republicans, conservatives, and libertarian people that are out there, our number one concern is securing the border. After the border is secured, everything can be worked on. But we're not going to be sucked into this ongoing, never-ending waves of immigration coming down here. And by the way, I want to just mention something. And you haven't said this, but 25% of the immigrants that are coming here are not coming from Mexico. They're coming from other parts of the world. And there's no way to track people. People come over here on visas from France. I know a guy that came over here on a visa from France and he's never gone home.
Baron, what's your question?
My question is, what is your position on securing the border? Because we're not going to get anywhere on this conversation until that gets done, and we could have gotten that done years ago.
Like I told Sean Hannity, because I've argued with him on his radio program 3 times already on this issue, I am for securing the border. I am for allocating as much resources as government thinks it's going to take. But simultaneously, we have to move on the other pieces. If you're telling me, let's wait till the border is secured first before we move on the other pieces, then I would disagree with
The
it.
Republican hierarchy is against the Republicans and the average Republican, the citizens. The citizens, you know what the statistics are. Something 75, 60, 75% of people in America want the border secured before we move on to the other issues. You shut the water off that's flooding the basement before you try to fix the basement.
Thanks, Baron. Okay, one last question.
Just a quick question. I am 100% Hispanic. My grandparents came here from Mexico. I'm 100% Hispanic. My grandparents came here from Mexico. Some of my grandparents lived in California and they had 13 kids, and my grandma moved to Texas.
Nice.
All of my uncles and aunts are educated. They have master's degrees and they live in the barrio. But I think it's what you teach your kids when you're a family. That's what makes you different. And my parents taught me never to cheat, work hard, and to work for everything that you have. I put myself in school. I worked 2 jobs, and I'm educated, and I've been in finance. I'm one of the productive Hispanic people in society. Not all Hispanic people are bad, and not all Hispanic people don't want us to like.
And what is your question?
My question is, how do you educate young Hispanic people between the ages of 18 to 35? Because I think education is key. And my mom is a teacher, and she tells me how there's a lot of these young kids that just don't want to learn, and they don't have goals. And I think a lot of it starts from the home. And I want to be able to learn how to help the Hispanic community get to that next level. Because without education, you have nothing, and you can't be a progressive member and contribute to society.
Well, like I said, we're trying to do our part by changing policy that actually allows more freedom, more choices, more alternatives to school, to an education, and opens up more opportunities for young kids. Not only from K to 12, but obviously through GED, further development of vocational schools, the kind of things that what's that gentleman from Hard Jobs, Mike Rowe was talking about, exactly those kind of things. Vocational careers, I think, are just as critical for our young Latinos, that are looking for opportunities. And so I think we should expand those opportunities as well. And look, at our offices, we provide internships, we provide volunteer opportunities, we provide them, I think, skills that they can use, on public policy advocacy. And I obviously with what we're going to be doing with the GED online course, it's going to be important. But we also offer scholarships as well, both at Florida International University and Nevada State College. We offer about 20 scholarships in each one of the universities to help kids down the path of studying economics, free market economics. So we want to get involved in the game, and I think that's our way of contributing.
Excellent. Thank you. The Tea Party Scottsdale.